Hello, family. It's Monday. It's Yolanda. It's time for another episode of Everybody at the Table. I have to say, I'm enjoying the new schedule of every 2 weeks. It gives me a little time and breath to think about how we move our conversations forward. I'm so appreciative of you all for engaging and staying with me through this journey and continuing to join the conversation. I'll have to be honest with you that today's topic is going to be a little heavy because I know for me and in the world right now, things are heavy. And this is a consciousness podcast, meaning that, the purpose and the focus of it is to prick the consciousness of the listener to think about our own privileges and how we use them to create access for all and hopefully to break down barriers within our makeup that causes us to put up walls or see people through the lens and filters of an understanding that isn't full. And so the point is to create this consciousness around how do you and I continue to think about others in a way that we want them to be at the table, whatever that looks like for them, and that we aren't barriers to bringing them into the room. I want to talk about why white male patriarchy is not welcome at my table. And there are a plethora of reasons why. As a Black woman who's journeyed through the struggle of the civil rights movement, I was born on the cusp of the 60s and the liberation movement by Black Americans moving from the nonviolent approach of Dr. King to the radicalization of liberation and messaging of the Black Panther Party and other groups who felt like taking a nonviolent approach was passive and didn't gain as much as being more vocal and radical in their decisions. So that's kind of the juxtaposition of my upbringing through development of civil rights and how everyone should have access, particularly as a Black American. But now as I've grown and engaged so many more people groups, for me, it's all people. So specifically for me, why I say white male patriarchy, not white males, but why white male patriarchy is not welcome to my table is the perfect example of what we're experiencing right now with the unprovoked violence against the Iranian government. Now, and let me be clear, that geopolitical issues that exist between any government and their positioning to be in power is a difficult, nuanced conversation that I choose not to have on this podcast. However, when I look at the outcomes of what has occurred with the strikes on Iran, the death toll that is taking place in this nation, unprovoked strikes based on preemptive information that someone thinks there's going to be an attack on them, is a concern to me. And the reason why I tie that to white male patriarchy is because when I look at the leaders of the nations of the United States of America and Israel, I see old white men, rich men who have obtained power and see the world strictly through a lens of anything that threatens their power has to be destroyed. It's not just through the Iranian attack that occurred, but it's happening with DEI, right? DEI literally was about promoting others being at the table, and because white male patriarchy didn't see itself or felt like its position was threatened, it wants to destroy DEI. I think about all of the different positions of people who are fighting for their own liberation, and what white supremacy and white male patriarchy has brought forth is this idea that if it's not the center, if it doesn't exist as everything surrounding it and is meant to serve it, it has to die. It can't be present. It can't have equality. And that for me means that not only is this idea and people who think like this aren't welcome at my table, that this poison, this toxicity that is hindering the evolution of humans just does not belong at anyone's table. What's encouraging for me as I watch the conversation happen in the social media sphere around this recent attack is I'm seeing more and more people wake up to the real damage that this power structure is causing so many. We have people stuck around the world. We have people who've been killed. We have people who are stuck literally around the world with bombs going off without any warning, just because two jokers decided to stop somebody they thought was threatening them with violence. They decided to enact violence as a response. We can't have conversations about creating access for all without hitting on the head the biggest interrupter and disruptor of why we continue in these cycles. So what are you and I to do? What is it that we have to do? Well, it depends on where you sit in the conversation. It depends on where you are in your journey, on whether you think that this is a problem, whether we have to call out what the real problem is, because oftentimes we want to cloak it in softer terms to say, well, it's a government structure, it's a political party. No, it's a clear structure of power chaired by white male men, toxic masculine men, who think that their way of life is the only way of life, and anyone who does not access or acquiesce to their thought process is now a threat. And that threat must be not just contained, but neutralized, stopped, killed, murdered. And that is what we're experiencing in our world right now. I say the point of this conversation is just to prick the hearts and minds of the listener to think about where you are in this conversation, how you see it, and what you're going to do to make sure that you educate yourselves and become a part of the solution and not the problem. And for all of us, that looks differently. For me, it looks like not entertaining even the thought or the concept of anyone who lives this worldview. Not that we can't have conversations, but the conversations will have to happen outside of my table. Maybe at a coffee shop, but not welcomed into the intimacy of my friendship, my home, and my heart, because it's a problem that I no longer have the bandwidth or burden for. Those are my thoughts. Those are my concerns for this week. It's a heavy topic. I would love to hear from you and where you are. I know it's a direct call out, and you may disagree, but that's what the conversation is for. Thanks as always for listening. Keep those impacted in your thoughts and prayers. Until next time, actually, I have a book recommendation that I'm going to add on to this to kind of lighten the mood. It's a really good book that I read this year. And I think that if you're a reader, even if you do audiobooks, put this one in your list. Would love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, take care and dine well. I just finished reading this book, James, by Percival Everett, and I want to talk about it. This book was so good. It is the backstory of Jim, the slave that accompanied Huckleberry Finn. But wait. It is Percival Everett's reimagination of who Jim really is. Very different than, of course, Mark Twain. But this book, while it's true to the period, is so empowering. So in the beginning, I was really triggered because it's got, period language. But then there's this code switching that Everett does that really just kind of blows your mind and reminds you of the code switching we even do today. And then you're watching this adventure happen between Huck and Jim as he fights for his freedom. Powerful. There are parts that I had to lay it down because it became really triggering. But when I picked it back up, the adventure, the story, the victory, the triumph, it was like reading a movie. I stayed up to 2:00 in the morning one night just finishing it because I was like, I'm just not going to pick this back up again. I have to get to the end. It's my recommended read of the week, month, year, whatever. It is fantastic. Check it out. James by Percival Everett.